Welcome to the Drone Economy with your hosts Mark Condell and Kevin McCabe. The pace of drone technology development and the industries it can serve is expanding each day, and its pace is breathtaking. At the present time, most drone capabilities are more advanced than is legally allowed due to airspace regulations. But how can we make sense of where drone forms and technology will be headed? Here at the Drone Economy, we believe that a principle commonly known as Wright's Law is the driver of the drone revolution and can be applied to forecast future advancements, but not necessarily regulatory changes. So what is Wright's Law? Wright's Law aims to provide a reliable framework for forecasting cost declines as a function of cumulative production. More precisely, it states that for every cumulative doubling of units produced, costs will fall by a constant percentage. This may sound confusing, but follow along for a moment to see how this is so significant to mapping out a technology's evolution, and in our area of interest, the drone economy. Wright's Law was formulated by Theodore Paul Wright, who was a U.S. aeronautical engineer and educator, and had a very successful career, including serving as a member of the National Defense Advisory Committee under President Franklin Roosevelt. While studying airplane manufacturing, he determined that for every doubling of airplane production, the labor required was reduced by 10 to 15%. This meant that the cost of each unit produced decreases as a function of the cumulative number of units produced. For instance, the cost to produce the 2 millionth plane was 15% less than that to produce the 1 millionth plane, and the cost to produce the 4 millionth plane was 15% less than to produce the 2 millionth plane. What about the famous Moore's Law? With Moore's Law, Gordon Moore focused on cost as a function of time. It states that the number of transistors on a chip would double every 2 years. Wright's Law, on the other hand, forecasts cost as a function of units produced. In attempting to predict how costs will reduce over time, Moore focused on the wrong variable, time. When he wrote every 2 years in forecasting the doubling of transistor density and consequent halving of computational costs, Moore implicitly assumed that consumer demand would increase in tandem with production. If transistor demand had faltered, Moore's Law would have failed. As the growth in unit production of transistors slowed dramatically over time, the price decline for computation began to plateau. The public proclaimed the end of Moore's Law, not realizing that it had been flawed all along. Instead of forecasting cost as a function of time, such a formula should incorporate the mechanic behind cost declines: production volume. What's amazing about Wright's Law is that it can be applied to almost any industry. ARK Invest, a major ETF investment firm, recently dove into Wright's Law and examined the period from 2005 through 2015. They found that Wright's Law was 40% more accurate than Moore's Law. They applied Wright's Law to the Tesla Model 3 car production and found that for every cumulative doubling, there was the expected decrease in price by 15%. I'd like to point out that cumulative means the number of Model 3s produced in this case since its launch. When looking at this chart, it appears that the number will eventually head to zero. But this is deceptive, since the chart is measured by units of production and not of time. The amount of doubling becomes exponentially more difficult. ARK Invest demonstrated an interesting way to look at this. There have been 2.5 billion gas-burning cars produced since they started over a century ago. Based on that industry's current doubling trend, it would take another 29 years for the next doubling and the next 15% decrease in cost. This is not likely to happen anytime in the near future, so gas-based car prices are essentially frozen. On the other hand, there have only been 3.5 million electric vehicles produced to date, so a doubling would only take about 1 year. As a result, the gas vehicle will experience a 0.5% drop in annual cost versus a 12% annual drop for electric vehicles. When applying Wright's law to the nascent drone market, we see exponential drops in price as well. According to the FAA, there are 1.7 million drones registered just in the United States. That's 500,000 commercial and 1.2 million recreational. With a loosening of commercial drone regulations over the last year, electric drone doubling should be frequent. Another factor that will drive drone use types up and costs down is the production of lithium-ion batteries. As the production of lithium-ion batteries has drastically increased with electric vehicles and iPhones, the doubling time has been reduced, and thus the price has dramatically dropped. This doubling should continue at a relatively short time frame for the next few years, which will drive continued cost reduction and performance enhancements in drones. In addition to Wright's law and its impact on overall costs, there will also be the impact of falling costs resulting from the advent of autonomous drones. By removing the cost and damage risk of manually controlled drones, the operational cost of drone fleets will collapse. Skydio's CEO has stated that the automation of drones should reduce the cost of operation down by a factor of 10 to 100. Wright's law has proven to be reliable for over a century in forecasting how an industry's price structure will reduce over time. It is the driving force in accelerating drones towards their arrival as an indispensable part of the economy. Drones are destined to be autonomous cloud-connected devices that are cost-effective and on-demand while living in rechargeable nests. That's going to wrap it up for today's episode. Please take a moment to like this video if you enjoyed it. Also, consider subscribing if you'd like to keep up with the drone economy and related content. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.